Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Music Talks podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Rose. And today, again, I have with me my very good research buddy, Mr. Chan Long.
Hey everyone, it's me again. I'm back to this podcast with Bobby Rose. It's an honor.
Yeah, you can hear the enthusiasm in his voice. So, yeah, we just wanted to cut that introduction very short. If you don't know him by now, you should check out one of the earlier episodes. He's my very good research buddy, go-to research buddy in UPM. And today we're going to be talking about something that's been mulling in my mind since like the past month. So, very quick question, Chanlong, dude, can you
Yeah.
tell the future?
The only closest thing I can tell about the future is definitely deja vu that I have in my dreams.
That's fair. So, real simple question. Are human beings able to tell the future?
I think it's very, very hard to say. The only closest thing, okay, let's be real here. The only closest thing we can get to actually see the future is actually by predicting them based on like the patterns that we can observe and we can analyze, but it's never a very confirmed thing because, for example, let's say the when our mobile network 4G first came out, no one actually like everyone predicted that it's going to be very effective for things that can be done remotely, things like that. But no one actually really predicted that 4G opens up a whole new market for streaming services. I mean, as in like the live streaming things that we see being used very commonly today, such as Instagram Live, Facebook Live,
Zoom
things like that.
meetings.
Yeah, exactly. It's something that we people never actually manage to predict. So even as much as we can try, as much as we try to predict the future, there's always something that we can never see and might bloom in the future. And I think that is the beauty of the nature of future for us, I would say.
That's very well put. And I like the fact that you use one important word. It's called predicting. Because my
Yeah.
follow-up question would be, it's not something small. Like if you have an egg, later on it can either be, cooked, or it can be, it can grow out to be a chicken. I mean, I'm missing a few process there, but eventually it'll be a chicken, right? But we're talking about the idea of uh astrology, or a study of weather, right? So you can kind of predict that it's gonna rain today, but you don't know it's gonna rain. You don't know. You're not saying that, oh, in the future it's gonna rain today, but you're predicting, and 75% of it is, as long as you're 75% right, 75% of the time you're right, then you are a good predictor. I mean, your team, that weather forecasting team, will be considered good. You know. So that's the context, ladies and gentlemen, of what we're gonna go about today, or rather, what we have started going about. And yeah, the idea of just where music came from in a general sense. We're not going to talk about like how human beings evolved in in that way, and leading up to the idea of where do we think music will go. So let's start off with a very simple question, Chanlong. Based on your studies, based on what you've learned, how do you think music actually like started back in the day? Like how did a group of people just like come together and decided this is music?
Well, actually, I would say how music started is something that is very hard to be traced because it really comes down to how and which culture that you are looking from. But then like I would say in many different cultures, there is this one thing, music, that is very common in these different cultures, because I think definitely for me, music started off as an expression, an extended expression for humans, and yeah, it is a form of uh human behaviors that is like they use beats, like such as percussions or things that can make sounds. These kind of things are human behaviors, and also an activity that requires more than one party to actually bring out. Because let's look at how music is today. If you are someone that learns piano, you don't really learn the piano and you play the piano by yourself. Of course, one way or another, you would want someone to be there as your audience
Mm-hmm.
to listen to what you play. So actually, what I would say is that, okay, I would not focus really on one thing that we all learn, like how music started as like Gregorian chant and stuff. But then like it's very hard to trace, because if we look at the Gregorian chants and stuff, we are only learning about the more of the Western side of music, while ignoring the other side of the world, the other parts of the world. So it's actually very hard to really pinpoint how it started. But I would say that uh, in my express like way to see it is that music started off as, well, it still is a human activity that needs to be done from one human to another human. It's an activity that is being brought out like in a group of people, because it's much like a form of conversation, I would say, because you don't learn to speak and you only speak by yourself, and you only speak to yourself. You learn to speak because you want to communicate with others. So
Mm-hmm.
music is also one thing, one form of human, I can't really say it's a conversation, but then it's a behavior and it's a form of expression that is being brought out through instruments, or like, yeah, through music.
Yeah, that's a very fair way to put it. So, I think the phrase you're looking for is a community phenomena,
Yeah.
whereby the earlier, yeah. So, you're talking about fantastic that Gregorian chant, and I was thinking more of in ethnographic and traditional music, in more indigenous music. It's always about, like, in Africa they were playing drums, and then in other parts of China it was like all string instruments. But yeah, essentially it's that need, not even love for arts. It's that need to communicate first that comes before everything else. But fast forward, I don't know, a few hundred years from what Gregorian chant was. What? Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, we just have to disclaim the fact that we are both music students. So we're just our mindset. We're just trained to think Westernly, more towards Western music. I guess that's why. Yeah. So going back to what I was saying, it's fast forward a few hundred years, then some people actually started to realize that, oh, when you speak in a certain way, melodically, rhythmically, with harmony, with instruments and whatever, it becomes this pocket, this vacuum of art, which is called music. In short, it's organized sounds. Organized sounds presented by a
Yeah.
presenter and listened to by a listener, by an audience. But how do we actually like pick up this thing called music, and then send it off to people to expand and to spread like worldwide? Now, how do you know Gregorian chant? How do I know Gregorian chant? Where else? Where it actually started all the way there, like 2,000 years ago, 1,000 plus years ago.
I would say, because this one is it's a very recorded thing that we have things that can slowly trace back to that time. And one thing about Western music is that I feel that there are many things that are very well recorded, documented, whereas sometimes in other parts of the world, their music might be lost in time because they are maybe in my understanding is that it's different ways of thinking that some people uh, would would prioritize the thing about passing this thing down. Some people would prioritize in having all the things well documented to say to document if okay who started this thing and stuff and then pass this knowledge down generations by generations. But then there are also some the previous examples that I say is that they focus on uh like just expanding and also passing down this activity that they are doing because uh let's just say that if you go to like uh some parts of the world that are very less documented, it's very hard to trace down their history if documenting the history part is not really what they practice in their culture.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I would say uh sometimes this is something that is very hard to come down to a very concrete answer that can answer for everyone because apparently if you grow up in a totally different culture, the way they uh, do things would be very different. So yeah, I would say it comes down to this documentation of how things happen and how things has been happening through the way that has had us until today that we can still trace back to like we're still able to learn how things were back then and how things started back then. But then I have this question with me all the time is that is it still possible that like because we what we learn in our study in our education is that oh okay the Gregorian chant is like how music started, but how it is before that time, how music is before that time is something that uh people are still trying to find out because um yeah there's this part of like uh if it's undocumented, you have to find different traces of things to try to connect things together to form a theory about what actually went down and stuff. So I would say yeah, when people start to have this habit of documenting things, the benefit of it is that the generations that come afterwards would get to learn and get to know how things back then so that uh I think it's a way that we can know, such as okay, for example, the music theory, how music theory started. Okay, maybe it's like back in the times when uh, who was that really? Like there were a few composers that they have this rule about like oh okay no parallel fifths,
Mm-hmm.
no parallel octaves and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, these are the things that over I would say it's like over generations and generations of doing this like doing the same thing and also improving on the same thing, and eventually they start documenting these things, then we get to know how it is today and how it all started back then because but then anything that happens before that is very hard to trace back if they didn't have the practice or the like generally don't do documentations and records. and stuff. Yeah, I so this is how I think about like the how music spread and expanded from where they were that time. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And it's really true. So it starts with so you mentioned 2 points there. The first one that I really want to touch on is the recording. So just a short summary for everyone. Uh how music was generally conventionally recorded back in the day was through writing, as Channel said. It will always be written on a manuscript. And if you want read more about this, you can look into Roger Kamen's Music and Appreciation, the history of music book. So you can see all these old manuscripts, like dusty old paper, like written by Beethoven, Bach, all those scribbles. It's not even like you go on Sibelius now and then you actually program it in. No, this was just like how we would like jot down notes in a quick pinch. Yeah, that's how they would jot down music. Because yeah. And then moving on from there, around 20th century, in a Ken Burns documentary called Jazz. Such an easy topic to remember, jazz. Uh, Past World War, I can't remember if it's like past World War II or before World War II. So only then did the first wave of recording music started. So I mean, like, personally, man, it boggles my brain that oh yeah, that we've never heard of the original idea by Bach's cello suite, for example. How is that legato? What does his legato really mean? Because we don't have that documentation of him actually playing, but it's all written, it's all interpreted, and blah blah blah. So like, the second one is that you said about the, going back to the concept of community phenomena. I guess the important thing to note is that people started traveling, and eventually the whole world became one big musical community. Well, just think about the artistic musical side, not about the other aspects of, like, people conquering and all the dark side of humanity, right? So yeah, so essentially it's still a community phenomena, but the community now is more of a global scale, on a global scale. And how I talk to you is through my own musical language, and how you respond to me is by your own musical language. So now we're trying to still, going back to what you said like half an hour ago, like the idea of communicating with each other, right? So now that we have that want to play, to communicate with each other, then we start recording stuff. And then came, I don't know, like innovations in instruments, right? Like where do you think the idea of, oh, I'm just gonna plug in a I don't know, a fiddle and a lute and a violin. I'm just gonna plug it out with with electric and just amplify this. So what do you think that, there was like a century transition between like organic instruments, like acoustic instruments, to electronic instruments? How do you think that, well, we came to that point?
I think for this one, right, it's it follows the technology, I would say, and then like when we see the more 19th century musicians, where they would like sorry, 20th century
20,
musicians, where they would start to yeah, they would start to use things such as the like the really electronic music, not the EDMs that we know today, but it's more of the computer generated music, because it's when the technology is available for musicians to transition from the very traditional, very organic
mm,
music instrument that you said to computer. Because back that time, computer is still a very new thing, and then musicians such as was it Stravinsky?
mm-hmm.
Yeah, they started to realize that, oh, computer actually is
uh
a very new form of music, And yeah, they started experimenting electronic music because this technology is made available. I would say that actually along the way, music is always evolving alongside the technology that is available.
Yeah.
Like back then, we have the recorded tapes, the the vinyls, and then we have
Mhm.
the cassettes, and then we have CD. To today, we have things like the streaming services, Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, and YouTube Music and stuff. Today, the music, the form of music already transitioned into music streaming, which we will talk more about that in the later episodes. But uh, the thing is, music is always something that is evolving alongside the technology, which yeah, back to the question, how to how music instruments transition from the organic uh like like maybe the original lute to like plug in
Mhm.
into to record them into in digital form.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's because of the availability of the technology. And musicians have this it's I think it's a nature that musicians would like to experiment with new things that they have. That's why we always see experimental music is a thing. And it's always these things that help us to push forward, to evolve with have music evolution evolving together with the technology that we have today. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's really true. Like especially when you touched on the genre, right? Yeah, I still remember until today. The reason why I mean, going back to just being strictly on the jazz side, the reason why we had like double time, ragtime, is because like correct me if I'm wrong, I might be very wrong about this. Like the earliest gramophone, the earliest vinyl CDs that can be recorded was just like 1 minute or like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So we got to get this in like we got to capture all this into this really quick.
Yeah.
And then the minute they started realizing, oh, we can stretch it out to like 5 minutes, and then somebody named Miles Davis was just like, you know what? Let's just let's not even half time. Let's like quarter time this. Do, do, do.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
correct.
And but it's really true. So if you mention it that way, and I do agree, it's the instruments or it's the innovation in technology that brings about the change in music. Doesn't matter if it's instruments, doesn't matter if it's genre. Because if you want to talk about not focusing on the instruments but on the genre itself, again, uh, style of singing, you can only
Yeah.
we only used to have that that direct voice to microphone uh singing style, or rather way back when was just voice like opera days, and then now and then after that it's voice to microphone, and then now we're having that time of T-Pain and all those auto tune vocalists, right? I don't know
Yeah.
if you consider T-Pain a singer, but you know. uh
This actually brings back to a very familiar thing that we always talk about in things such as performance practice, because it's always a debate on whether we should interpret music according to the music instruments that were available back then, or should we interpret it in like incorporate the newer things into the music scores that
yeah,
we have
yeah,
back
yeah.
then. Okay, so for example, we used to have only the harpsichord, like yeah, to play Clementi, or to play Mozart's music. And actually, if you play using piano today, it's a very different instrument as compared to harpsichord that back then, because the instrument instrument itself, although the keys that we have are quite similar in such a way that we have black keys, we have white keys, but we need to consider the thing about the action. Back then, harpsichord's action is plucking, but then today our pianos, our the actions of the piano is
Yeah,
hammer
yeah,
hitting on a string. So the way to play is very different. Like because back in harpsichord, because of its action, its design, the thing about dynamics is not as prevalent as pianos today.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Where piano we can easily control the dynamics to have it soft or loud, but then in harpsichord it's not really something that you can do. So that's why, yeah, the thing about the singing styles, and also like how the singing style changes according to time. I would say that the instrument playing is also something that is that changes throughout the time, because like the reason why I say it's something that is still being debated uh, among the scholars when it comes to the performance practice. This thing about authenticity, or like versus like interpretation, self-interpretation,
yeah,
is we can never have an answer, because some people think that we need to stay true to the original work, but then some people, they would think that it's important for us to, like, if we play in today's instrument, it's okay for us to incorporate some of the newer elements into our playing to make it uh more, I would say, modernized.
yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, so this is something that remind that your statement about the changing singing styles reminds me about. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess I guess I take on the second, the latter mindset, whereby you should modernize. I use the word update. You should
Yeah,
update. And
updates, yes.
yeah, I mean, I don't want to get sensitive and all, but back in the day, a book that is written, for example, like To Kill a Mockingbird, back in the day, it would hit differently compared to when you read it today, because you're in today's context, right?
Mm.
So it's supposed to evolve. It's just a personal thing, but I was actually in one of the earlier episodes. If you missed out on this episode, the title of the episode was the myths and Q&A about music production, audio production. I actually asked our friend Hazi Aizat, and actually it's just totally up to you how you want to produce that sound. But you just have to come to terms. You just have to come to peace with the idea that um, however that you play will never be as perfect. Uh, will never be the same. It can be similar. It can be 99.99%. I mean, heck, violins. You can literally have the same shape and whatever of violin, but that bow, I forgot what it's called, like the wider bow or the thicker bow, and it's supposed to
Uh,
yeah, and it's supposed to produce a different sound. And even today, like you were talking about the harpsichord, right? I can literally sample one note of harpsichord and then like disperse it all over a keyboard, an 88 key MIDI keyboard, and it still wouldn't sound that perfect harpsichord. But okay, so enough on reminiscing in the past. So moving on from here. So let's take on a more interesting approach. Now that you mentioned that 4G uh, aspect in the beginning of this conversation, right? Um, let's say if one day we are able to move from 4G to 5G, and then even like 6G internet, we can like download 1 terabyte per second, or something like that, right? Where movies will be like not even 8K anymore. It's just like 18K or something. Uh, what impact do you think that will have in music? Like with any kind of innovations in electric vehicles, in better internet, in every kind of. Do you think music will actually take another step further? in evolving?
Okay, so when we look at music, right now let's look at in this 5 years time, music has been a very right now has been the in the big scene. We can say there are two very very popular genre. One is definitely the mumble rap,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and sort of evolve hip hop, but then yeah, people might not try to associate mumble rap to hip hop, but yeah, it's a kind of music that evolved from hip hop naturally. And
Mm-hmm.
then there's also EDM. Yeah, about EDM, back then when it became a very popular thing, it started off with things like dubstep, such as like Skrillex is one of the most known artists who does dubstep.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have things like that is like slowly transitioning into the mainstream pop music,
Mm-hmm.
such as David Guetta or
LMFAO.
Kevin Harris. Yeah, they are the ones who started bringing the EDM into this mainstream music. And then slowly this EDM start to evolve into things like the things that we tend to hear a lot today, like lo-fi. And also there are some things like vaporwave and stuff. These are also the rather new EDMs, I would say. And then actually the music that we hear today that are quite popular in social media, such as like TikTok, of course.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the TikTok is also one of the platforms that uh pushes music very very much. Because music is a very 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 important part in TikTok itself. And people some songs, okay, some like maybe older songs, they tend to get popularized again because of uh these songs being used heavily in the TikTok videos. And also there are like uh when we talk about music today, there are also we can see artists today, like the singers, they tend to incorporate the elements of because lo-fi is still quite popular today, and they incorporate the elements of lo-fi into their music. So actually we can uh kind of see of course we cannot, it is very hard for us to anticipate and predict what is coming next. But then sometimes when we coming from a perspective of a musician, we can also see that, okay, since this thing is popular right now, so how do we incorporate this new thing into music? It's how this thought that keeps music evolving, I would say. Not only as a musician, but then as an artist, it's sort of evolve, like arts and music, they do evolve in such patterns. Like social media is a very big part of our life right now. So
Mm-hmm.
what people do uh, and also what trends in social media tends to become one of the elements in music today. So uh, yeah, that's how I see the future of music. It's always following a pattern. Maybe in the future, social media will not be as popular as today. Maybe it's like let's say VR or maybe AR become a very big thing today, and maybe we would walk around in the streets wearing glasses, and uh, it's not even VR, maybe it's AR. Like it's we will live in a world that is being projected through the glasses that we wear, but this is just like
Prediction.
sort of a prediction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so maybe in the future we will be living in world like this. But right now we can only predict. But I would say if we do live like that, and the music will also evolve itself following our lifestyle, I would say.
Okay.
Music is something that we can never live without. It's very uh it's rooted deep into our lives. Like you cannot imagine doing anything, like going through a single day, like doing anything without hearing music in anything. Like for things like doorbells or maybe the rice cooker and stuff, there are music
Mhm.
in everything that anything that we do today. So yeah, this is how I see
Okay.
the future of music.
And I totally agree with where we're with your with how you mentioned that where we're going is the accessibility of music, right? So
Yeah.
let me just put it this way. How I see the pattern that you're displaying is that you're mentioning is that back in the day, yes, it's a cliche, but it's a true cliche. It's a true statement that we live with music. We cannot live without music. And but back in the day, we would go out and chase music because of how accessible we are to music, how much accessibility we have. You did mention like Spotify and Tidal and whatnot. It shows both the appreciation and the lack of appreciation towards music, if you think about it, because you did give that timeline of okay, so we started off with solos, solo piano playing, and then all the way to pop music of 20th century, like back in the 1960s, 19, like guitar solos and whatever. And then we threw that out, and then music became more electronic. So even the clarity, we took away the mids. It's all about the highs from the vocals and the bass, the lows from the bass. Um, and you did mention that today in today's sonic culture, I would say lo-fi is where we're at, and I personally realized that it's more about singing and ambience. So when you want um thickened ambient sounds and then like you said mumble rapping and whatever, so it just made me have a suddenly realization: is it possible that we might get to a possible future of music whereby it's not even music anymore, it's just sound? You know, and you did say in that future where oh, one thing I do disagree with you is you mentioned like people walking out on streets. I think we're not even gonna go out on streets. We're just gonna sit in our rooms and on our beds and watch people in Wembley or like in Budokan stage. But we're just like sitting in our rooms
Mm.
and watching shows like that. Um, but in the end of the day, following the track of what you did say, like one day we'll be walking around and it's not just AirPods or wireless earphones, wireless earbuds. It's gonna be like a full-on headset, right? We don't really want music, or rather we need music so much, but because it's so, we go around and we hear music from shops and all those doorbells. We have so much sound around us, and up to a certain point we're just okay listening to because if you think about it, that's where we're heading to at this point. You keep pumping up the bass, pumping up the bass, pumping up the high, kill the mid, and then everything is just and then all the is no clear sound. There's no vocal clarity or whatever, and mix with all the sound pollution of the world. It's just going to be noise, right? Is that? I mean, I know it's quite eccentric to think that way, but do you think that's one possibility of the future of music?
I would say I can't really say that it's a like future of music because if you look carefully, the things that you mentioned just now might already be practiced somewhere by the experimental musicians.
Yeah.
So it might be like people might it already because like yeah, experimental musicians, they like to experiment with the very like something that is not really being practiced in our like normally in our life. And then I would say uh if this experimental music are being accepted in a bigger audience, then we'll say this is will be the future. But then like I would say for now, this kind of music are still like within a very niche market of like those who like experimental genre of music. Um, I would say it's quite hard because the melody and stuff is still a very big part of music that uh, has not changed a lot. If we trace back from music back then to now, the melody and stuff is still very very important. It's just that how we tweak the things inside that would
Mm.
be changing. And like but then I would say okay, let's look at how, okay, for example, the very classical music, they tend to use like how to say the chords and stuff, they are very organized in a way. And then we go to jazz. Jazz is sort of very disorganized in a very organized way. And then we come to pop. Slowly people realize jazz is too difficult for many musicians, so they start to simplify the music playing and the music style a lot. And then like the pop music today is they went into organize again. And organize is just a very simple it's just a better way to say it's being very very simplified as compared to jazz. But then right now we are going back into like people trying to like okay, R&B for example is still a very popular genre today. Like when we look at the K-pop and some of the Japanese songs, they still do have this kind of jazz elements into their music. So what we are seeing right now is that people like to go from difficult things to simpler, and then difficult again to simpler. Like yeah, these kind of things. I would say that it will be a recurring pattern. It's just about how people like for that particular period of time. And then like when they slowly realize, oh, I like that style back then, the style that we used to have, and they will incorporate the things again. And then to a point when they feel like, oh, it's getting more and more complicated now, so we will simplify again. Like okay, this is how I would anticipate music that is going to come in the future. But then yeah, maybe you have a very different view on this, but this is what I do notice. And trend is a thing that is going like moving way quicker right now because of how connected we are today. But I would say the connectedness today might be the peak of human to human connectivity. And we'll never know what will come next because as far as like this lockdowns that we are having right now, I will only say that people still like back to the statement that you say we would stay in our room to most of the time and stuff. But I would say having experienced this lockdown, people actually like connecting with people physically still.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I would say even with AR and stuff, maybe it will serve us in such a way that uh while we are in Malaysia, having those headsets or like the like maybe in glasses, in the form of glasses, or like in the form of contact lens, we can like project the views of like Japan or like Australia into our city or our streets. And then yeah, this is how I see it, but then there is a limit to it because humans are still the human to human interaction in person is still very, very important. I say back then people used to say that, oh, people are getting more and more connected, and it's very easy to connect to people with internet. But then this COVID forced us to have a lockdown. I think really make people realize that human connectivity physically is still the thing that we need, no matter how far we go
Yeah.
into
Yep.
the technological advancement.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
back to music. Yeah, we are off track a little bit, but I would say music in a way, I think it's the same. It will go to like again like what you said just now, like maybe the vocals and they will pump up the ambient sound a lot more, and then like maybe the bass will get emphasized a lot more than usual. But then I would say that uh maybe they will reach a point where they will uh get down again and use the existing styles, musical styles that we used to have, and then like extend upon it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how I see how music would change, and uh the kind of pattern that I sort of notice. Yeah.
Yeah. And I do agree that there are certain thresholds, there are certain limits that you can hit and then you go back. And it's that nostalgic feeling and then that wanting feeling. So yeah, there is certainly a cycle to it. I would say that I guess at the end of the day, you're right. There's no really there's not really a fixed explanation as to what music, what the new face of music can be. But the only thing that we can tell, I guess a way to summarize this whole episode is that the futurology of music states that it's going to keep moving. It's going to keep changing. How? No idea. But it's definitely not going to be stagnant. It's definitely not going to be stagnant. So, Chanlong, thank you so much for all your thoughts. It's very interesting. I just love the idea that we can go on such a wild rides in terms of our musicological adventures. And it's not even relating to, I mean, like we didn't even play any music, we're just like talking about it. And I love that we actually
Yeah.
have the opportunity to do so. Um, yeah, so I guess that's the end of the episode. As far as our imaginations can stretch. If you do have any questions, or if you, dear listener, or if you're watching this from YouTube audience, if you seem to have an idea of what the future of music can be, or if you have like this is the new genre that we're going to go into, that whatever song that you made is going to be the new genre, hit us up. Send us an email on the link below, and we'll definitely send your name out to like the Guinness World Record or something. Yeah. So until then, thank you so much, Chanlong, again for your thoughts.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to this episode. And again, I'm your host, Bobby Rose. I'll catch you on the next one. See ya.